Hello and welcome to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and on this episode we are taking a look at some new Bendy figs coming to us from the Noble collection. And these Bendy figs are from a line of things we very much love here on this channel, and that is Star Trek, and in particular, Star Trek The Next Generation. Now previously on this channel we actually took a look at some of the Star Trek original series Bendy figs, as well as a few other Bendy figs that the Noble collection has been putting out, and we've been very impressed by them. So hopefully this new line of figures is going to keep that trend going in a positive direction, but let's find out. And first things first, let us talk about this packaging that these Bendy figs are coming in. And that packaging is the same as we've gotten with the previous line of really any of the Bendy figs. They're all basically the same style of action figure packaging, which is very much reminiscent of what we used to get as kids. It's kind of a very wholesome style of packaging. It shows you everything up front. You could see the entire blister clearly from every single angle. And it's also using that space very economically in terms of how much of the figure you're seeing versus how much cardboard there is. The front of the packaging has the Star Trek TNG logo, along with the 4 characters who we're going to be seeing in this line, with one little odd change, and that would be Deanna Troi here, because you'll notice she's in her blue Starfleet uniform and not the purple outfit that she's wearing in the toy we have today. This packaging also lets us know that this toy-lectable figure includes a display stand, which you can see behind all the figures, and that's going to be really cool to take a look at once it's actually out of the box. As for the back of the packaging, it's fairly simple also. Once again, you're just going to see a look at all 4 of the figures in this lineup, and those are 3D renderings of these figures, so those are not actual toys that we're looking at in this case, as well as a photo of the figure that we're going to be looking at. What's kind of interesting is that there are absolutely no bios on these figures, and that makes sense. I don't think they do bios on any of their stuff normally in general. But what's kind of unusual is how little pomp and circumstance these figures have, because Picard is just Picard. He's not Captain Jean-Luc Picard, he's not Jean-Luc Picard, he is Picard. So everybody's doing the Madonna thing this time around and just using one name for their entire character. But that's enough about the packaging. Let's go ahead and beam our figures out and take a closer look at them from all angles. Real quick before we get into the actual full review here, when you do open up these packages, you're going to be greeted by a whole lot of twisty ties, and these are some really extra obnoxious twisty ties. It's not that there's a ton of them either, it's only a few really. There's only 3, 1 on the head and 1 on each foot, making for a grand total of 3, but they're kind of painful. But they're really unpleasant to deal with, so just giving you a heads up. And for some really unknown reason, Worf doesn't even have twisty ties on his legs, he just has normal little tags. Those you can snip. I don't know why they're different, they just are for some reason, but just a heads up to you. Another fun little thing you'll notice once you do take them all out of the packaging is that they all have a little plastic wrap on their hands, and I don't quite know why. It's probably there just to prevent any, I guess, possible paint spillage onto the plastic. But yeah, you're going to see that in all the figures. That's basically any Bendy fig that Noble Collection does. So all you got to do is just pull it off, and yeah, problem solved. There you go. All right, now let's go ahead and take a closer look at everybody. Alright, and here we have all 4 of our Bendy figs, all 4 of our toy-lectables, if you will. So let's go ahead and start taking a close look at them. And you can notice, by the way, that they are all currently standing up really nice and really straight. That's a real positive. And as you saw when we were showing you guys the packaging, everybody comes with a display base. This is what they look like, but they don't even need it because they're all standing up really solid, really straight right now. So we'll come back to those displays in a little bit along with the other accessories, but let's just first go ahead and start by talking about the likenesses. And unfortunately, that's where things start to kind of fall apart a little bit here. So, you know, in terms of likenesses, oh boy, I don't quite know where to begin here. So some are definitely better than others, and the ones that are not better than others are, well, not so great. And this is one of those times where I could really tell that it's not the sculpting job on these figures, it's totally the paint job that is knocking them down quite a few points in some cases. So let's start with the captain himself. Let's talk about Jean-Luc Picard's likeness. Does this look like Patrick Stewart? No, definitely not. This is not a good Patrick Stewart. I mean, again, talking about paint jobs here, you can see one eye going in one direction and one eye going in another direction. He basically looks like Marty Feldman, and that's a big problem. And it's, again, unfortunate, because looking at the shape of his head, I mean, they actually completely got that. The shape of his nose, they totally nailed it, because he does have a hard nose to really get into action figure form. The mouth is right, I mean, the eye placement is more or less there. It's just the paint job that just looks really funny on him. And it really does come down to, I think, the eyes just being too big and just in weird positions. All these figures do have pretty simple paint jobs, but that's not what's knocking it down. It's just the placement of that paint. So our captain doesn't fare too well. How about Data? How's our Lieutenant Commander doing? How's our Lieutenant Commander doing? Well, this one's a little bit better. It's definitely closer to looking like Brent Spiner. It's much closer, in fact, and especially from that profile, because his profile is so distinct. I mean, that Brent Spiner nose, he's known for that schnoz. But again, it comes down to the eyes, and you really lose so much when you get the eyes wrong. And this is one of those cases where they're close, but they're not that close. They're still pretty far off where, you know, you can tell it's Data, but something is just not right, and something is not there. And really, this Data almost looks more like a vampire to me than it does Data. From certain angles, you can definitely see Brent Spiner in there, but in most other angles, it's just not quite there. I think our good counselor might fare the worst among this series here. because, you know, again, looks like her sculpt is not too bad, but that paint job, I don't know what the heck they did to her, but yikes, she does not look like Marina Sirtis in any way whatsoever. And I think once more, it's the eyes that are getting it wrong. But even with that said, I think her nose might be a little bit off too. I mean, something about this is just not quite ringing at all for her. This Deanna Troi is just not doing it. The best sculpt among all of them would easily be Worf. Worf looks absolutely like Michael Dorn. He looks totally like Worf. This is actually quite perfect. This is really probably the most perfect one we've looked at from all the Star Trek toys, I'd even say. And that's including the original series lineup. So it takes the non-human figure to get the best sculpt, which is really kind of fun to think about. But unfortunately, as you can see with this version of Worf, it's his eyes. Hey, once again, the eyes. And his eyes have some weird, really bad paint job going on there. And I might be able to scrape that off, and I'm going to try that as we do this review. I'm going to try and scrape off some of that eye goop that's like leaking onto his nose and his ridges. But yeah, the fact that I even passed quality control is kind of questionable. But as far as sculpts go, that one is the knockout among the entire series. And since our Worf is the best looking among the crew here, I'm going to go ahead and give him the first base to use, just so we can show you guys how that works. You can see there's actually little pegs on the base here, one on each side, and it's one for each foot, because the figures all have 2 peg holes. And as we've seen in the past with other times we've done these videos here, they slip on pretty much with no problem, and they're very firm on that base once they do get on there. So there we go, that's how our Worf looks on that base. Now none of the bases are personalized either, so everybody's going to fit in onto any base. If you think back in time to when Playmates did the Star Trek TNG figures, all of them came with personalized bases. But Noble Collection is doing their own thing, so everybody just has the exact same base. And, you know, for better or for worse, that's up to you guys. But I will say these bases are very nice. I mean, these look really cool. I really like how the way they came out. If those peg holes weren't there, I could easily see myself just hanging this up as a wall decoration, because it's just such a nice shiny texture in the middle for the Starfleet insignia, and then the nice grainy, rougher texture on the sides really helps it stand out very nicely. Let's see if we can squeeze Data on in here too. I don't think we're going to be able to get all 4 on once they have their base on onto my little platform here, but we're going to fake it as much as we can. So yeah, there you guys go. You can see the bases look really, really nice. No argument there. The bases really are a perfect fit, look really nice, and are helping keep everybody nice and steady so that they're not falling over. But really, they didn't have a problem falling over in the first place because they were all so solid to start with. So that part's really nice, and that is just one of their accessories because each one of them does come with an additional accessory. So let's take a closer look at that. Marty Feldman Picard comes with his own phaser. We have a really nice looking phaser. Excellent job on the detail here, by the way, folks. I know it's a little hard to see because it's small, but like all the buttons are there. There's even ridges where the handle is. You know, while it might not be totally painted as much as like a full-size phaser, all the sculpting details are totally there. This is a really great accessory for a figure like this. And it should fit in his hand as well. And I guess we can do a little bit of articulation test, but you know, these are bendy figs, so they're going to be fairly easily articulatable. And you guys can see it, there we go, it's in his hand. You know, it's not maybe all the way up. Let's see how high we can get this arm, because I didn't really test that enough when I did these first reviews. These are pretty stiff figures, so yeah, all right, it's there. He's definitely holding it, and that's kind of what matters. He's got it in his hand, so I'll give him points for that. And it doesn't look too bad. So that's our Picard and his phaser. Let's go ahead now, and let's take a look at what Deanna Troi came with. And the Counselor has a pad device, which, again, really nice detail. This one maybe quite not as heavily detailed as that phaser, but, you know, that's also because, to be quite honest, this prop on the show is not even necessarily that super detailed either. But, I mean, check out the decal work in the center there. That's a really good-looking decal, really nice L-cars. So, yeah, this is pretty good, too. Let's try, though, and see if we can fit this into our hand. I think this hand might be the one that does it, but let's find out. Yeah, there we go. All right, more or less in there. Bend her back a little bit so you can see it better. So, yeah, and she's moving a lot better, too. She's much more flexible than our Picard was, which, well, wow, isn't that, like, the truth about Picard, right? But, yeah, that is the pad in Deanna Troi's hand. That's looking pretty good, too. Let's go ahead and give a try now to Data. Data comes with what was oddly enough called, when I did a press tour with one of the folks from Noble Collection, they called it a cell phone. This is not Data's cell phone, this is Data's tricorder. So he comes with a tricorder. Again, really great sculpting detail. I'm very, very impressed by all the little details in this tricorder. There's no decals on here, though. There's no other paint job. It's just basically straight out of the mold with this silver color, and that's it. So it's kind of funny. We go from the pad device that actually has a sticker on it to the tricorder that has nothing at all. It's just a silver thing, and I guess that's why the person who I spoke to when they first did that press tour for me just thought it was a cell phone. And unfortunately, he's not really holding that too easily here. Maybe if I manipulate his arm enough, there we go. So it's in there. Looks a little awkward, but hey, they are bendy figs after all. But he is holding it. That's what matters. And to be quite honest, I didn't think he'd even be able to do that just because of the shape of his hand. But turns out he actually can't hold it. And last but not least, let's try out Worf. And Worf comes with, well, besides being so big, I have to actually zoom out the camera because, man, he really is taking up the whole frame. Worf here comes with, I think, the coolest accessory among this entire series. He has a bat'leth. Look at this monstrosity of an accessory. This is great. This is so nice. You can see how big this thing is, too. I mean, it's pretty much in scale, as all these accessories are. But, yeah, man, great detail on this. It is a two-color piece also. That's really wonderful. Let us see if Worf can actually wield his bat'leth the way it is intended. And yeah, wow, he's actually, that was cool. I don't know if you guys caught it on camera or not, but he actually was able to open his palm and kind of grip that thing. So yeah, he's actually doing it. He is holding his bat'leth. And there you go. You guys can see it here from this angle. That looks nice. That looks really, really cool. I don't know if I can get him to actually wield it with two hands or not. That might be a challenge. I don't think it's going to work because these shoulders are really not the most flexible. And since I have Worf up here, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that articulation, because with bendy figs, you'd think they'd be a little bit more malleable, but these guys are pretty stiff. So let's try and move them around a little bit more. I mean, I'm like trying to get the shoulder to go up right now, and that's not really doing a ton. You know, I can get the elbows to kind of bend, I can get the wrists to kind of bend, but as you can see, it's coming right back into place. I don't think the neck's going to move much either. And legs, you got some good flexibility. I mean, you can get him to do the matrix, but he's mostly springing right back up. So as far as like malleability and even playability goes, you know, they're not necessarily the best for that. And that's partly why they're calling these toy-lectables as opposed to really just straight up calling them toys. They are kind of meant to be displayed more so than played with, and if you are just going to display them, then yeah, they absolutely do the job, and they look quite nice on their bases with their accessories. Now let's just do some quick comparisons also. I've got these guys up here. I'm going to compare them to the original series Bendy figs. I'm going to have Captain with Captain. Here is Kirk next to Jean-Luc, and Shatner's sculpt looking much better than Picard's, or at least the paint job looking much nicer, so that's that. Let's go ahead and take a look at Spock, though, who in my opinion was probably the best of the four of that original series lineup. Spock looks really great here. It's unfortunate because, you know, when you really start looking at these guys side by side with like the other figures, yeah, you can just kind of see the flaws in what went wrong with that paint job. And that's, I think, really comes down to just what it was. I think it's really just the paint job that kind of messed these guys up. Do a swapperoo here for our Worf, the best one, and Spock, arguably the best one also, but from the original series. But but Dr. McCoy, I should say, is actually quite nice too. Dr. McCoy looks really great. He came out really nice too. Just that paint job again, you can see those eyes. Kind of funky, kind of wonky looking eyes. But last but not least, let's bring out both of our ladies here. We've got Deanna Troi and we've got Uhura. And, you know, Uhura was easily the worst sculpt of the original series lineup. And once again, Deanna Troi, worst sculpt, I would say, by far. Or at least worst paint job, maybe. I mean, actually, no. Picard really takes the cake there. But really, my point here is I wanted to show you guys these two because the women still aren't looking too good. You know, Noble Collection's doing a really nice job overall with the sculpts for the male figures, even if the paint jobs don't quite match up to them. But the female figures, the women, they're just not quite there still. And part of that might just be to the fact of how these bendies are produced. You know, they're kind of produced a different way. These aren't quite as fine in terms of shape and details like you get with an action figure. They tend to be a little bit more clunky. And when it comes to the female figures who have more finer details, you do lose out on some of that. So I don't know what they can do to fix that, or if there is anything that they can do to fix it. It is just something to be aware of. So final thoughts on the bendy figs from the Noble Collection for Star Trek TNG. You know, overall, the sculpts I think are really good. It's just the paint that you gotta watch out for. So, you know, if you are a Star Trek fan and you want to get these, especially because you are a completionist, I say go ahead and get them. Especially in packaging, they look really nice. Out of the packaging too, they do look really great. And from a distance especially, I think all that will be pretty passable. You know, like the sculpts not being 100%, from, you know, 6 feet away, 10 feet away, they'll look fine. So as long as you're not getting too close to them, it won't be a big deal. And hopefully if you do order them, you'll get better paint jobs than I got here. That might just be what part of it is. It could just be that every paint job is a little bit iffy, a little bit different. So, you know, I would recommend if you get them, maybe try getting it from Amazon, because this way, worst case scenario, you get a version you don't like, you can ship it back, get a different one. Overall, I do like these. I just wish that paint job was a little bit better. And that's kind of disappointing, seeing how great bendy figs have been from the Noble Collection so far. Because we have looked at a whole bunch of them, they've been pretty good. It just tends to be the facial paint jobs that kind of make me deduct a few points. But otherwise, I mean, you know, looking at the uniforms right now, they're show accurate as far as colors go. Maybe not screen accurate or whatever, but I mean, hey, they look right. That part looks good. There's some great details in all of them. I mean, their Starfleet badges are painted nicely. All their pips are there. We're looking at Worf's sash now as he starts to pass us by, and that looks really great. Wonderful job in the texture. Accessories are really good too. I mean, overall, I mean, looking at these uniforms, looking at the outfits, from a distance, like I said, these are great. I think they're worth the price. Just when you get a little bit closer, it's kind of when you start to lose a little bit of that point. But, you know, point is, I'm just rambling now. Really, my thing about these is I like them. I think I like them enough that I can recommend them. just with a little bit of caution if you do get them. But with all that said, these toys are pretty cheap too. These are pretty affordable. So, you know, the fact that you're getting what you're getting here with the really nice accessory with a really great looking base, I don't think it's a bad deal. And at the end of the day, these are Bendy figs. We got to keep that in mind. We can't quite grade them the same way we grade an action figure. And I'm pretty sure that's part of why Noble Collection markets these as quote-unquote toy-lectables. That's their kind of way of saying what these are meant to be used as and how they're meant to be shown or displayed. So for what they are and for the price that they are too, I say go ahead. I give them thumbs up that they're worth grabbing. So if you're a Star Trek fan and you want to add these to your collection, go ahead and check out our YouTube description below, and you'll find links where you can pick these up for yourself. Using our Amazon affiliate links helps us out at no extra cost to you. So please consider using them if you want to get these or anything else from Star Trek from Amazon. So that's our look at the Noble Collection Star Trek The Next Generation Bendy Figs Series 1. Now we do know that there is a Series 2 of the Star Trek Original Series Bendy Figs on the way as well. We saw those actually in an interview we did quite some time ago with the Noble Collection, so if you want to see what's coming up next, go ahead and check that video out. As for the future of the Star Trek TNG figures, clearly there's a whole lot of characters they haven't made yet that we could absolutely get in Bendy form, so stay tuned for those. So until next time, I'm Matthew, this has been Nerd News Today, and we'll see you guys later with more toy reviews coming up soon.